The Survivors Left After War, Book 1. Like most days, the sound of the camera is haunting. Not much scares me anymore, but the whispers I hear in those powerful swells are terrifying. Thanks to the apocalypse that caused the end of the world, I've become the guardian of a refugee camp called Safe Haven. Surrounded with carefully observing sentries, I sit by the immense Pacific Ocean as people work and play, confident that my eagles will protect them while I tell you about the war and about how we were forced to flee our beloved homeland in the awful aftermath. The fall of society was a nightmare from which we couldn't wake. Some of us still haven't, and soon we'll be at the waste water's mercy again. In less than 2 months, we're going home, and I'm the only one who knows. The real America still waits for us to rebuild, but mostly simply for us to return. Before we undertake that perilous journey, I have to get 357 souls here ready for the trip, and I only know one way it can be done. Adrian has to come back and lead us home, as he promised. Adrian, that incredibly patriotic man, has been exiled, even though he is the only reason we survived. His secrets were the excuse camp needed to turn on him, but I won't do that. I can't. I swore myself to him, and the same as the rest of his council, and like them, I still believe. I've gotten ahead of myself far beyond the beginning, when our future didn't look as good as it does now. Most people surviving here won't talk about the long, ugly journey we made together. They say those memories have faded, but I know a lie when I hear one. Some horrors you never forget, like our final battle with Caesar. It's been 5 years, but I still see the thick streams of blood running down rain-soaked trees. I still smell men burning alive in their metal coffins. I dream of it sometimes, of the cold, wet night when I was the bait, and I'm sure Adrian does too. It was the moment we knew our people would would live because one man's dream and his terrible lies. Adrian kept us alive, gave us everything he had, and he always did what was best for the camp, no matter what it cost him personally. He taught us to be stronger than we thought we could be to defend each other and ourselves, and through all he lied by omission. He knew these scared, hunting survivors would never have trusted him, would never have given him a chance if they'd known who he really was. We came a long way together in the year after the war, thousands and thousands of miles of heartbreaking devastation, and it hurts those of us who remain loyal to witness him accept their unfair judgment without a fight. It makes everything we lived through feel less important than it was. Weakness, the magic somehow, and I can't allow that. I've been detecting open doors again, and the only ocean cautions me, says, the trip home will be as hard as it was that we undertook to get here. If there's a storm coming for the flock, then it's our guardian we'll need to guide us through it. So for Adrian, and for those of us standing by him, still ready to die for him, and for the dreams he made me believe in, from almost the first minute I set foot into the refugee camp, I will tell our story and leave nothing out. Maybe then those people will realize what he did for our country, accept how we owe him, and allow him to reclaim what's rightfully his, us. Before I tell you about our harsh, ugly journey, let me show you what happened on that day, what they did to us, and what we did to each other. This is our story of survival. It began. Chapter 1. This is the way. December 21st, 2012. This is a joke, right? One of Milton's gags. When no one spoke, President Carter examined the paper he'd been given to read. Wishing he had surrounded himself with more experienced people, he had no idea what would come next. It wasn't something he'd planned to conquer during his time in office. Where do I give the speech? Carter had discovered a love of talking to his people, but Ben Sealing, Deputy Chief of Staff, gestured to the radio the president used for his weekly addresses. It's not safe in public. The rioting started an hour ago in most places and is spreading faster than we can keep up with. No cameras. Press? No, Ben refused. We already have 2 security tapes missing. No reporters, no questions. Too many people still suspect the truth. Usually confident, Carter was almost speechless, unable to imagine how his country would react. He slid behind the impressive desk for once without reminding himself that it was his. Hand hesitating, he looked up. We're sure? Ben's curt nod confirmed it, but the sheer number of the Secret Service agents roving the halls of the West Wing, filling his Oval Office, was what drove it in. As Carter had the thought, 3 more uniformed men came in from the doors that led to the Rose Garden, expressions shouting excitement and a touch of fear that wasn't comforting. Yes, the agents will take you and your family out as soon as you're finished here. The Vice President and Joint Chiefs will be in the air shortly, headed for Essex Compound. The President flinched as 2 more shots rang out in quick succession somewhere nearby. He swept the damning newspaper lying on the spotless desk. Betrayal is the foundation of America. The Gospel of Mary was discovered in southern France last month, and how now been proven genuine by experts secretly asked to test the parchments. In them is a tale of murder, extortion, kidnapping, and forced reproduction that scientists claim have kept secret the descendants of Jesus Christ. The list of powerful people. The president flinched. Damn it. Betrayal is the foundation of America. The Gospel of Mary was discovered in southern France last month and has now proven genuine by experts secretly asked to test the parchments. In them is a tale of murder, extortion, kidnapping, and forced reproduction that scientists claim have been kept secret, the descendants of Jesus Christ. The list of powerful families around the globe that are being accused is staggering. Carter gestured to the newspaper. Tomorrow's edition? He was positive he didn't want to know it had been obtained. When did they discover this site? An old manuscript was unearthed in France last year. One of the experts refused a large payment to keep quiet, and we couldn't secure all the copies of his findings. A local station is set to run the story tomorrow. Not anymore. Exactly. The first-term president stared at the seal. The desk, the walls, these things had been his, and he had done justice to them where he could. But this? It was beyond his control. Massive secret that had been kept all these years. The days of government rule would be, Mr. President, please. Breaking into a sweat and not caring that is ruining a very expensive suit, Carter stared at the small sea of faces. Now, hearing heavy stomps above which only be agents storming through the residence of his family. Ben perhaps reading some of his thoughts, spoke up. These men have no families to rescue, have been paid well in gold and passes, and all of them voted for you. These are no deserters here. You and your family will make it to NORAD safe and sound. Only slightly reassured, the president skimmed what might be his last address. Worry burning intensely, he glared up from the pages at the impatient deputy chief of staff. You'll activate the sirens? Both of them looked up at the ceiling. Lights changed to a pale red. As soon as you're on your way. Now, please, you have to go. DC is a direct target. Carter delayed, hating it that he was being rushed, wasn't being told everything. What about air traffic control and vital services? The deputy's lined face went blank and when he replied. It was a tone that implied it didn't matter. They've been instructed to land the planes anywhere they can. So Star Wars doesn't shoot any more down by mistake. Later, reports said 4 confirmed crashes. 2 more suspected, Mr. President. We have to... What about vitals and evacuations? Ben sighed in frustration. Knowing that the president would have his report before he did anything, Carter could be pushed, but it had to be gently. The internet is locked down. Only our senior military have the codes needed to access it. As for the evacs, those on the list are 35% recovered at this point, ahead of schedule. And the vitals? Carter insisted, knowing it was ugly. In the answer, he heard the same terror and anxiety he felt in his own stomach. We have reports of massive abandonment of posts already. Media stations in France and China are on it. Daycares, schools, hospitals, radar and traffic towers, police station, utility plants. They're starting to shut down. Citizens will have nothing to depend on. No way to survive after the first few months. The deputy's voice lowered. The draft convoy started out half an hour ago. Waves of refugees have been spotted hitting towns ahead of the trucks. Some of those places are attempting to barricade themselves in. We've covered it. Our men will follow orders. The president winced at the mental image. He'd been briefed, but he hadn't honestly thought that they would do this to their Carter. It was the first time the deputy had ever called him by his first name, and to do it here, in this hallowed place, was such a transgression of protocol that it got Carter's full attention. This was the strategy that smarter men than himself had agreed upon. After, when it was time to come out of hiding, he would still be in charge. The U.S. presidency was not allowed to change hands during a time of war unless there was a death. We're using the rest of our arsenal, retaliating even though we caused it? Carter questioned. Ben motioned for one of the agents to grab the tapes and the hidden microphone from the desk. It's all underway. Carter's finger pushed the button, not asking how that was possible without his approval. He'd learned a lot about leadership in the past few years, and one of the biggest lessons was that you didn't ask questions unless you could take the answers. Stomach churning, he began. My fellow Americans, this is your president. Carter Hines and I have grave news. Let me start by asking each of you to care for and comfort each other in this time of crisis, and we'll get through it together. He lied, ignoring the man waving at him to skip what didn't matter, to just inform his people that the entire world was about to change violently and forever. At 10:28 this morning, a terrorist was able to gain access to our nuclear arsenal by hacking into the system and introducing an unknown virus that shut down our firewalls and allowed our defense system computers to be breached. As a result, control over half of our warheads were compromised. The terrorists immediately initiated multiple launches, and the warheads are not responding to abort the codes. 10 minutes ago, these stolen weapons began reaching their targets, and other countries have retaliated thinking we've declared war. The president paused. He couldn't believe he was saying this, and he felt an entire country holding its breath, listening, looking for comfort that he couldn't give. We predict that the United States will take at least 5 nuclear hits. The list of cities that are expecting bombs include Washington, D.C., Houston, Lansing, New York City, and Los Angeles. Leave these areas immediately. Noise levels instantly went up throughout the White House, and outside more gunshots destroyed the tense silence. Loud and rapid, they should have drawn immediate attention. When they didn't, the president understood this was really happening, and he was positive he'd be the last man to sit here. Gunfire directly outside the fences, and the agents in the room hadn't even blinked. It wasn't a tasteless joke. The world really was ending. I'm declaring martial law nationwide, effective immediately. The curfew is an hour before sunset. Looters will be dealt with harshly. Our southern border has been closed. All air traffic has been grounded, and prices are frozen across the board. He hesitated again, and then drew a deep breath. I've also reinstated the draft, effective 3 hours ago. All males ages 16 to 45 will surrender to their homes. Do what the soldiers tell you to do, and pray for your country. God bless you, and God bless the United States. He was jerked out of the seat at a motion from Ben, and the president stopped struggling as the agents rushed him outside, where panic was roaring from the streets. Warning, incoming! The lawn speakers blared behind them, and Carter suddenly understood that it was too late. We're not going to make it. The agents literally threw him onto the chopper, and the president huddled with his pale wife and twin boys as Marine One quickly rose into the air. As it ascended, the blades were assaulted with rocks, shoes, briefcases, and cell phones that doomed citizens through in fury. The agents on the ground began to fire as a mob overwhelmed the iron gates and rushed across the White House lawn. Blood-splattered bodies fell, and then Marine One reached an altitude that cut off Carter's view of the ground. "Daddy, fire in the clouds!" The explosion was blinding, and Carter kissed his wife's tear-stained lips as the shock wave caught up to them. There were no survivors. That's the end of Chapter 1 for today. Next Tuesday, we'll start with Chapter 2. And it looks like Chapter 2 is very short, so we'll do 2 chapters next Tuesday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys out there on the tube. Thanks for watching.